The legal claim also says that Karen Bass made multiple false claims justifying the removal of Kristen Crowley as chief, including suggestions that Crowley sent 1,000 firefighters home. Josh, how is this going to play out? I know there's a lot of anger still in Los Angeles directed at Karen Bass over the fires.
Well, Gabriella, I know that all too personally, actually. So I live in Florida, not in California, but my wife and I have friends actually who lost their home. In fact, we actually were at a wedding in Santa Barbara, California, just in May for like a couple who got married that weekend. They literally lost their home just 4.5 months prior to their wedding day in the Palisades fire there. And there are all too many stories like this. It was just a horrific thing. But that Karen Bass video, by the way, where she just refuses to answer the questions there.
Yeah.
I remember watching that like it was yesterday, actually. I mean, absolutely astonishing stuff. I mean, it's so awkward. I mean, literally just like standing there, I mean, you can shake your head, you can walk away there, you can kind of like put your hand up to the camera, but I mean, like, don't just like stand there. I mean, that is political malpractice 101. Now, Crowley, the axed fire chief, is interesting because at the time, a lot of the conservative media here in the United States was talking about how Crowley was actually the first avowedly, I believe, homosexual, lesbian fire chief of any major city in the United States. There are a lot of folks in conservative media were talking about how this was a DEI hire, and that kind of led to the fire there. Now we're starting to learn a slightly different version of former fire chief Crowley there. I will be very curious to see where this particular lawsuit goes. What I do know is that Karen Bass is worse than nothing, that she is horrific. I mean, she was a backbencher Democrat in the U.S. Congress. She was in the House, and she was an absolute nobody when it comes to legislation, a total backbencher there. Then she goes into the mayor's office, and we've now literally seen L.A. go to probably the lowest point in its entire fairly illustrious actually history as a city there. So look, we'll see what happens there, but it's a very interesting turn from Miss Crowley, who kind of went from the punching bag of conservative media here to now being something of a hero there. I'll be very curious to see that, as Gabrielle, where this lawsuit goes.
I completely agree with you about your assessment of Karen Bass. You know, what she's done even since then. She's been against ICE while there have been riots in Los Angeles a few months ago. She was insisting they weren't violent, and we just saw so much violence being played out. She's such a joke. And frustratingly, rather, for residents in LA, Karen Bass is delaying the after-action report on the Palisades fire, and she's delaying it until the ongoing federal investigation into the cause has been completed. But people in the community are just so sick of this, sick of the delay, and need answers about the city's response. It's been 7 months now, and they're still waiting.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to do this other than just pure obfuscation, right? I mean, she can kind of claim this procedural reason over waiting for the feds to release XYZ thing before we release our local finding there. That is a total red herring. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever why the municipality of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, cannot release their findings prior to the Trump Pam Bondi DOJ. That frankly makes no sense whatsoever. But by the way, Gabriella, I think it's probably an appropriate time to remind the audience here, you know, this is actually not the only fire in recent years here in America that we are still awaiting some sense of an explanation here. I mean, it was the Maui, Hawaii fire roughly 2 years ago in the year 2023, where, if I'm not mistaken, that was by some estimates, because we actually still don't know how many people died in the Maui fire. Some people estimate that was actually the single deadliest fire in American history, at least since the Great Chicago Fire of the late 19th century. So this is not the first time that we've seen something like this there. I suspect what's actually happening here, Gabriella, is frankly Occam's razor. The most simplest explanation is usually the right explanation, which is that these are politicians who are literally just trying to cover their behind by any means necessary there. I'm very happy that the Trump Pam Bondi DOJ is on the case, but again, there's absolutely no reason why the city and county of Los Angeles should be trying to appeal to the feds in order to evade responsibility. That frankly is nothing less than a glaring middle finger to the voters of Los Angeles County there. And the voters of Los Angeles County had any sense in them whatsoever there, they would vote these bums out of office ASAP.
Absolutely. Josh Hammer, Senior Editor at Large at Newsweek, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks as always, Gabrielle.